In the year 2000, the American newspaper industry sold over $15 billion in classified advertising. It was their single most profitable division. A river of gold that had flowed for more than a century. By 2012, that number had collapsed by over 75% to less than $5 billion. Billions in revenue, gone. An entire industry brought to its knees. What was the culprit? What new media titan orchestrated this stunning collapse? It wasn't a global news corporation. It wasn't a television network. It was a simple, text-only website with a peace sign for a logo, run by a handful of people out of a small office in San Francisco. The website was Craigslist. Started in 1995 by a software engineer named Craig Newmark, it wasn't even a business. It was a simple email distribution list for his friends to share local events. It grew organically, by word of mouth, into a web-based community board known for its stark, utilitarian design and its non-commercial ethos. It looked amateurish. It had no advertising. For most of its services, it charged absolutely nothing. So how did this seemingly insignificant, non-commercial project manage to systematically dismantle the most profitable pillar of the modern newspaper? How did it outmaneuver corporations with billions in assets and 100 years of market dominance? That is the question we are answering today. To understand how Craigslist won, we first have to understand the world it entered. The world that newspapers completely and totally controlled. For a newspaper in the 20th century, classified ads were the ultimate cash cow. Think about it. Selling a used car? You paid the newspaper. Renting an apartment? You paid the newspaper. Hiring a new employee? You paid the newspaper. They held a local monopoly on information. If you wanted to reach your entire town, there was no other option. And they priced it accordingly. Ads were expensive, often charging by the word or by the line. The process was slow and cumbersome. You had to call in your ad or visit their office, meet a strict deadline for the next day's print run, and hope you didn't make a typo. Because this model was so incredibly profitable, often accounting for 40 to 50% of a paper's total revenue, the industry had no incentive to change. They were content. They were complacent. They saw their business as printing newspapers, not as connecting local buyers and sellers. This was their blind spot. And it was a multi-billion-dollar mistake. Into this stagnant, high-priced market came Craigslist. And it did everything the newspapers didn't. First, and most importantly, it was free. For the vast majority of categories, selling a couch, finding a roommate, offering a service, there was no charge. This wasn't a limited-time offer. It was the core principle of the platform. It immediately removed the single biggest point of friction for users: cost. Second, it was instant. There were no printing deadlines. You could post an ad from your computer and it would be live in minutes. You could edit it just as quickly. The power shifted from the institution to the individual. Third, it was vast and searchable. A newspaper's classifieds were a jumble of tiny text you had to scan manually. Craigslist had categories, subcategories, and a search bar. It leveraged the power of the digital format to make finding what you wanted effortless. This combination of free, fast, and functional created a powerful flywheel known as the network effect. Because it was free, more people posted ads. Because there were more ads, more people came to the site to browse. The more buyers and sellers a marketplace has, the more valuable that marketplace becomes for everyone. Newspapers couldn't compete because they were charging for an inferior product. The network effect took hold, and soon everyone knew, if you wanted to buy or sell something locally, you went to Craigslist. Craigslist's strategy, whether intentional or not, was a perfect example of a concept known as unbundling. A traditional newspaper is a bundle of different products, all sold together for one price. You get national news, local news, sports scores, opinion columns, comics, and classified ads. For a century, this bundle was a great deal. You wanted the news, and you got the classifieds along with it. Craigslist didn't try to compete with the entire newspaper. It didn't hire journalists or sports writers. It ignored 90% of the bundle. Instead, it targeted just one highly profitable component, the classifieds. It unbundled the classifieds from the newspaper and created a standalone product that did that one job better, faster, and cheaper. In fact, it did it for free. Users no longer needed to buy the entire bundle, the newspaper, to get the one thing they wanted, a platform to post an ad. They could go directly to the specialist. Craigslist became the specialist, and once users realized they could get this one part of the bundle for free, they were no longer willing to pay the newspaper for it. This leads to the final piece of the puzzle, the business model. Or in Craigslist's case, the lack of one. A major newspaper is a high-overhead operation. It requires printing presses, office buildings, a massive staff of writers, editors, photographers, and a fleet of delivery trucks. All of this costs an enormous amount of money, which had to be covered by subscription fees and advertising revenue. Craigslist, by contrast, had virtually no overhead. In its peak disruptive years, it was run by fewer than 30 people. Its product was a website, requiring only servers and a small team of engineers. This radical difference in operating cost is what economists call asymmetric competition. Craigslist could afford to give away its service for free because its costs were microscopic. A newspaper could never afford to make its classifieds free, because it needed that revenue to pay for the printing presses and the journalists. They were trapped. To compete with Craigslist on price, they would have to dismantle their own core business. This is the classic innovator's dilemma. Craigslist was a self-funding public service. The minimal costs were easily covered by charging for a few specific categories, like job postings in major cities and apartment listings in New York. The revenue from these few paid ads supported the entire free platform for the rest of the world. It was a brilliant, lightweight model that the legacy industry was structurally incapable of fighting. And that is the secret. Craigslist's disruption wasn't about a flashy website or a massive marketing budget. It was about fundamentally changing the rules of the game. Newspapers saw themselves in the business of selling ad space. Craigslist saw itself in the business of connecting people. By focusing on the user's goal, and by using technology to remove every possible barrier, cost, speed, and convenience, it created a utility that was simply more valuable than the product newspapers were selling. The aha moment is this: Craigslist didn't just build a better mousetrap, it gave the mousetrap away for free. It leveraged an ultra-low-cost structure and the power of the network effect to make an entire revenue category for its competitors obsolete. The newspapers weren't just outcompeted, the very ground they stood on was removed from beneath them. They were selling information in a world that was suddenly demanding that information be free. If you feel like you've just learned a powerful new concept, take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to Strategy Unlocked. Your support helps us continue to break down the most brilliant strategies in business. The story of Craigslist versus the newspapers is a textbook case of disruptive innovation. It proves that your biggest threat often doesn't look like a competitor. It's the smaller, cheaper, simpler alternative that serves a niche and then grows to consume the entire market. The broader lesson is that no industry is safe from being unbundled. Any business that forces customers to buy a package of services just to get the one thing they truly want is vulnerable. Craigslist showed that if you can identify that one thing and offer it to the customer in a more direct, efficient, and affordable way, you can topple an empire. It's a reminder that customer value, not corporate tradition, is what ultimately wins. If you learn something new, hit the like button and subscribe for more strategy breakdowns. And let us know in the comments, what company strategy should we unlock next?